And I think, but in terms of what are the ingredients that sustain a movement, most definitely integrity, most definitely honesty, most definitely leadership that you can trust and that you're proud to stand alongside. And that notion of sharing out power and sharing with power is really important. Too many people go into it for the ego and to be famous for 5 or 10 minutes or whatever. And if you're in it for the long term, in fact, here I want to pay tribute to the Dunphys again. They worked in Northern Ireland under the radar. They stayed with us in the good times and the bad times, right throughout it all. And one of the most important things that they did was to connect us to others, to learn the lessons from other places, what works, what doesn't work. And I think when you're in a movement or an organization, as you've just said, it's really important to do that. What lessons can I learn? And champions are important as well. I want to tell you a wonderful story about South Africa in terms of the inspiration that we got in the mid-90s. We were looking at South Africa because there weren't very many processes. There was Guatemala and South Africa. And in Northern Ireland, we were looking and reading everything about your constitution, about the transition, what can we bring into it to ours. And then we had this most amazing invitation from President Mandela to come to Arniston on the Eastern Cape, to a military camp where we were locked up for 3 days. It was the best lock-up they ever did. And we sat down and we listened to the leaders here from all the parties. And we were told, you just have to listen. You don't have to take what we're saying and put it back into your own system. And we brought back many lessons. One was the sufficiency of consensus, the word I mentioned earlier. How do you build consensus across people who are so hurt and so harmed by the past? It's so difficult to do. In fact, we were so hurt and with so much hatred that we came in. Poor President Mandela and President Mandela in particular had to do his talk twice. And he said, and everything else had to be twice, 2 canteens, in the end 2 sets of men's toilets. This was in 1997, here in South Africa. He said, you people have brought apartheid back to South Africa. And that shamed us, and that made us think, we have to do this differently. And all of us came home and thought, well then the ceasefire, IRA declared a ceasefire about 2 nights later, and came into the talks and stayed in the talks. And not many people know that South Africans came to us on many, many times, went into the prisons, went into the communities, shared their stories, and stories are so important. And we learned those lessons. And I think that's the importance that we learned, was also the determination of what happened here, the leadership that was offered here, the inclusiveness. And so I want to hold out that hope that South Africa one day will, again, it might be going through a terrible roller coaster at the moment, but one day will be that inspiration for the rest of the world.